All right. You ready? Well, let's just start in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, go. Okay, so this is Hue. It's a game all about color. There's going to be a couple letters that I pick up along the way that explain the story. But basically, Hugh's mother disappeared. She was gathering stuff to allow her to see color, because in this world people can only see black and white. And she created a ring that allows people to see color, but the traitorous Dr. Gray didn't like it, so he destroyed the ring, but that turned Hugh's mother invisible. So it's our job to gather all the fragments of the ring, put it back together so we can save Hugh's mother. More or less.
I couldn't speak to you, nor interact with anything in the mono world. So I left. I left for the university where I hid away the colored tools I had created.
This category is the Warpless Any % category, so it's as close to what you do casually as you can see in a speedrun. So you can do, in the Any % category, there's death warps and things like that, and you can warp using the map. And basically any kind of warp is banned in this category, just to make it more interesting in a sense, because you have to solve more puzzles that way. So this is the first fragment of the ring that we're collecting. It's a blue fragment. Not much to say other than that. And we're going to be making our way to the caves, which is the first big area in the game, where we have to start solving puzzles.
Understanding which connects us. But are you really seeing blue the same way I see it? Perhaps blue is nothing more than a shade of grey to you.
So this is going to be the first place where we see the core mechanic of the game. You can see there's these blue rocks here. So once this dialogue finishes, you can see I turned the background of the room blue, so the rocks are now invisible, so to speak. And you can see there's more colors here. There's red and there's orange, and once we get the red and orange fragments, we can also go through these places. So it's almost a Metroidvania style game in that sense, where you'd have to collect things to be able to pass through areas you've already been.
The chances are your expectations will be met. But if you discard those expectations, don't you think instead the cave will be full of surprises? I ask for you, Hugh, to abandon your expectations, to pull me back from the brink of unreality. I need you to see the world not for what it is, but for what it can be.
So right now I only have the one color, which means there's not that much puzzling to be done, because once I change a room to blue, I can't change it back anymore. But we'll be getting the next color fragment soon enough. And you can see there's also secrets hidden along the way every so often, which you can only unlock or look at once you come back to the same area with more colors available. Oops. So this is one of the more awkward skips at the start of the game. You kind of have to jump against that boulder and it doesn't kill you for some reason. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it does. Alright. So we're about to get our second color fragment. It's the color purple. Yeah, all the color fragments you'll see are in huge rooms like this, just for, I don't know, dramatic effect. And basically after every fragment we find, there's going to be a long room where there's some dialogue that is not skippable. So we can buckle in for some story time.
Did you know, Hugh, that purple is at the very end of the visible spectrum? It's the hardest colour for our eyes to distinguish. Now, imagine a shade one step further than purple, a colour beyond what we can actually perceive. We call these impossible colours. And I fear that this is where I currently reside. If reality is rooted in our perception, and you cannot perceive me, do I even exist to you? I'm sure that I do. I mean, you're reading this letter, or at least I hope you are. I'm sorry, but existing in this strange state of impermanence does funny things to you, Hugh. It makes you question.
So now that we have two colors, you'll see we're going to be swapping between them pretty quickly, just so we can get through the rooms as fast as possible. And the more colors you get, the more challenging it is to accurately change between them as fast as possible. There's a total of 8 colors in the game, which we'll all be collecting in the first half, more or less. And then later on, the last half is just lots of different kinds of puzzles that include basically all the different elements of the game that you learn in the first half.
The university gardens were bathed in an earthy orange light when I first met Dr. Gray. Summer had come and gone, and a cold autumnal crispness had caught me off guard. I sat on the grass, surrounded by my books and papers, when a cool breeze threatened to blow my notes across the lawn. A page escaped my reach and took flight. A man not much older than myself chased after it, catching it on his third or fourth attempt. I remember his gentle smile when he returned it. He started talking, and I was surprised that he had read my work in the university journal. He said he was a professor and that he hoped we could work together someday.
So now you'll see we're going to be getting back to the same cave we started in originally, except we now have orange, so we can go down this ladder and progress to the next area. And we're going to be revisiting the same cave lots of times as we unlock more and more colors.
Mentor. I can't help but feel he somehow had a hand in it. Our fires burnt brightest when we worked together. It felt like we could achieve anything. We discovered more about colour than I could ever have imagined. We split light, mapped spectrums, we painted. We laughed. We worked long hours, and soon our goal became all-consuming. We were vessels. The work became more important than us, and we knew it.
So now you can see with 3 colors there's a lot of different things you can do with the puzzle. A lot of different, lots of different types of puzzles you can do. And it's really cool. There's a lot of different puzzle elements as well in this game, which makes it very interesting to play casually. And it also makes it very interesting to do it as a speedrun, because there's a lot of cool ways you can skip puzzle elements and just make rooms faster. So yeah, I really enjoy this game as a speedrun just because there's a huge variety of different strats and things like that. It makes it very interesting. And it's very easy to pick up as well. So this room, for example, has one of the coolest strats, in my opinion, where you just, I don't know, you're supposed to go into the alcove on the left with purple and then wait for all the boulders to fall down, but you can use the fact that one of the boulders is delayed to skip that. Alright, we now have the next color fragment. That's half of them. There's a total of 8 that we're going to collect all of it right here in the same cave. And then we're going to be moving on to the university later on. And once again, now that we've collected a color fragment, the next room is going to be long and full of dialogue.
It's funny. I don't remember much after that day on the grass. I do know that Dr. Gray and I spent many a time together. I would compliment him on his work and his cheeks would flush with a pinkness. He'd notice and change the subject, embarrassed. This work we were doing together, it didn't feel much like work anymore.
Oops. Jumped a bit too high off the ladder. So this room is, you're basically doing it as intended. There's not, well, there is a skip, but it's very inconsistent, which uses a wall jump, which we'll probably see later on. I only do one in the run just because they're very inconsistent. But basically this room is as intended, so it's just about doing everything as quickly as possible. Oops. And a lot of puzzles are still as intended or have only very minor skips, which is kind of cool. That's one of the reasons I actually enjoy the warpless category. So one thing you'll see here, if I do it right, oops, is that you can have these boxes inside one another. So if you switch back colors while two boxes overlap, they'll then be inside one another and you can push them at the same time like this, which can be very handy. So here's one of the first bigger skips in the game. There's a lot of stuff over to the right side of this room, but we just skip it all because this game wasn't play tested well enough. And we can just make the jump there. And there's a lot of instances of that actually in the entire game, just places where you can skip things that you wouldn't expect to be able to. or make jumps that you're not supposed to be able to, just because, I don't know, apparently they didn't test everything as well as they should. So this is one of the more complicated rooms in the early stages of the game. It's important to do everything right here in terms of the top three or the middle three boxes, just so you can line them up for exiting as well. So you can get up to the ladder there at the end. Oops. Not like that. Okay. And the next color fragment is, of course, red. Yeah, not much to say about each color. There's nothing specific, or there's nothing specifically different about each color. It just allows you to have puzzles with 5 different colors or 6 different colors, but at some point it becomes kind of redundant. So there's no puzzle in the game that uses all 8 different colors in an effective way, right?
Did you know, Hugh, that
There's no
every
puzzle that
language
would
first
only
has a
work
word for black
with 8
and for
colors,
white,
but
for
it's
dark
still
and for light. The first colour described after
the puzzles are still very interesting.
The colour of blood and wine.
But some of them can also be broken just because you have more colors than
my experiments
you
had
really
gone too
need.
far. When Dr. Gray sided with the university, stopping my research altogether. For all our languages, for all our ways to communicate, it's funny how sometimes we simply cannot. It leads people to do things they regret, to steal, to break, to forget what's important.
And each of these areas kind of has its own theme. So this is ancient ruins, more or less. Later on, we'll be in the tech area where they introduce lasers,
the seed of knowledge was planted
and moving platforms and things like that.
To let it wilt and die.
Here, it's mostly going to be balloons, buttons, boxes, things like that.
That altering the fabric of our reality was dangerous. They were unflinching. My research was confiscated.
Oh,
and
there's going to be thwomps as well.
Following my expulsion, I was left with no choice but to uproot and move us both far away. I knew of a small fishing village a boat ride from the university, where I hoped my reputation wouldn't precede me. You and I moved into a humble home, which is now where you've spent most of your childhood.
So this is again just an intended solution done as quickly as we can. There's going to be a lot of those in this area where there's not really any skip. It's just doing the intended thing as quickly as you can. You can sometimes make it through this door. Saves about a second. It's not very significant. Again, just doing the room as intended. This is actually a room where we found a new strat relatively recently, a couple days ago. Not a whole lot faster, but it saves about 3 seconds. This might not work. Yeah, push the box too far. But if you put the box on the thwomp, you can then let it fall through as well. And skip getting it into the other box in the right side of the room. Here there's a cycle skip. If I time that correctly, I can make it through this door. Yep, just barely. Here you'll be seeing another similar strat to what we did just a second ago with dropping a box through a thwomp. Because we need to get this box all the way down to the bottom, but moving it all the way left and right a million times is pretty slow. So just wait for the thwomp to start going up, and then I can just drop the box through. And we finished that area as well. Alright, so we're 3/4 of the way done with collecting the colors. Just yellow and green left. I hinted earlier that there'd be balloons. That's going to be in this upcoming section.
The ancient scriptures of civilizations lost.
Which are balloons are just attached to boxes, so they raise up and then they float in the air. So they can then balloons can lift boxes off buttons or be used as an elevator. Lots of different things.
Other colours were detailed at length, but not blue. It was never mentioned at all. The word simply didn't exist. Could they not distinguish blue? Without a word to describe it, how could we be sure they could see it at all?
Oops. Sometimes you can pull a box through the door before it, even though it's trying to close. So here you can see I use the boxes as an elevator just to get up here because of the balloons lift them up. oh. This is actually, I don't know. This room isn't actually that difficult, but the thing is, every time you die on it, it loses a ton of time just because the room's very long. And it's one of my least favorite rooms in the game, just because it's really awkward to maneuver through here. There we go. So this room is one of those instances where there's just an obvious skip that wasn't tested for. We can just get this key without getting another box, just by jumping up there. It's not hard. There's nothing difficult about that. It just works and wasn't removed or wasn't tested for, I guess. It's a bit of a shame, but it's not too bad. You probably won't try that casually, and for the speedrun, I guess it's nice to have a skip. I don't know. This room looks scary, but it's not difficult. All it is accurately switching colors, which may be difficult in a casual playthrough, but if you're running this game, you shouldn't have trouble with that at all. And that's yellow. So now the last area attached to the cave system we're in is the tech area, which introduces lasers, moving platforms, things like that. Yeah, it also increases the likelihood of me dying just because lasers are a one-hit kill. Lots of places to stupidly walk into a laser, or especially if you select the wrong color, something like that, which does happen every once in a while. It's very easy to die.
Spring was around the corner. Yellow daffodils poked through the dirt in our backyard.
And the death animation in Q or the respawn time is very slow, so every death loses probably 5 seconds at least. And the longer the room is, the more time it loses. You can lose upwards of 30 seconds from a single death.
One day, Hugh, when you were sleeping, I watched over you. I was on the cusp of a breakthrough, and you were the last person left to see it. I was so excited for the both of us. My research led me to tales of a long-lost civilization. They built great machines, pioneering electricity many years before we discovered it. Strangely, though, this civilization is said to have felt no pain. They knew of pain and observed it, yet could not experience it themselves. Explaining to them the sensation of pain is like me explaining colour to someone that can only see in black and white. I wonder, Hugh, if we will be able to share in our experiences of colour.
So you can see with lasers, there's a lot of color switching, just so you can walk through each area. And now you have moving lasers as well, so that's fun. And coming up somewhat soon is one of the hardest rooms in the game called Laser Madness 2, which you'll see why it's difficult. Another instance of bad playtesting, you can just jump the gap there. Alright, I can skip a cycle on that laser. You can skip the same way up here, but it saves almost no time and it's really risky. See if I can make this. Nah, I don't think I could have. I needed to enter the door further to the right because relative position to the door is preserved when you enter a new room. So you can make the cycle more easily. Alright, this is one of the hardest rooms in the game. Okay, we made it. Just because it's all the color switches are very precise. But it's helped by the fact that whenever you have the color wheel open, the game slows down, so you can kind of not buffer your inputs, but slow the game down so it's easier to time everything. This is again a room that can't look scary, but it's not difficult. All it is waiting for these thwomps with the lasers for eyes to get out of the way. Well, it is if you select the wrong color. That's unfortunate. It's fine though. Silly mistake, but it happens. Alright, this is the last color fragment. We've now collected all 8, so we can see the full spectrum of colors. And now that we've done that, after some dialogue and a couple more puzzles, we'll be heading up to the mountain and the university to rescue Hugh's mom.
The first time I wore the ring, I could see a coloured image of the sun. Aqua, purple, orange, pink, red, blue, yellow and green. Great fireworks played out across the backdrop to my reality. Was I dreaming? Was I alive? My senses dulled from a lifetime of monotone, struggled with the revelation. Time eased. Colours danced in slow motion, like like Pollock painting a ballet on the moon. I removed the ring and time slipped back to normal. Colour dissolved into grey. It was overwhelming. But what followed affected me the most. After seeing in colour for the first time, when everything returned to normal, I could remember in colour. I had never before had a coloured memory.
This is an interesting room because in my casual playthrough, I didn't figure out how to do this correctly. You're supposed to, what you'll see me do here is wait for the platform to go over and then turn off the lasers. But I apparently was too silly or too dumb to figure this out. So instead I just pushed this box across with the laser still on, which is about 100 times more challenging than it's supposed to be. Just kind of funny. And I'm not the only person that's done that. So it's interesting anyway. That there's a much harder solution, but it also works, even though it's not necessarily supposed to. Or even though it's not the intended solution. Oops, go off first. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is that it's actually faster to push boxes if you're jumping up and down. So you'll see me try every time my head is under a ceiling and I'm pushing a box, I'm just going to be jumping as much as I can to push the box more quickly. So right here I'll jump to push it more quickly. And I'm actually going to go back the way we came, because there's a different exit that takes us to the lighthouse, but it's slower than going back the way we came originally. So we can turn on the lighthouse now, which allows the boats to come into harbor and take us to the university. So of course the university is at the top of a tall mountain, which has lots of ways to die on the way up. And of course the cable car is broken, so you can't take a shortcut. And the mountain is going to introduce one more puzzle element, as will the university later on, which you'll see soon enough.
If a tree stands in the woods and nobody is there to see it, does that tree exist? Does it have colour and form? Does it matter? This journey has been difficult, Hugh, and whilst I have trodden a lost, winding path, I feel no closer to the truth I was after, no matter how long you chase the moon. If truth does exist in our minds, then I feel there may be one that I have neglected. All this time, you've been alone, and now uprooted, on a journey for my cause. For what? So that I could see the world a little clearer?
Alright, so this is the next puzzle element. There are these bouncing blocks that change color every time you bounce on them. Which may not sound that interesting, but it makes it more complicated to platform across, just because you might have to swap colors, because every time you touch it, it'll change to a different color. And then it might become invisible because you have that color selected. Or in this case, you want the blocks to be invisible because otherwise they'd bounce you into the spikes on the ceiling. Oops. So the last room in the mountain is one of the more challenging because it has quite a big skip in it. That's pretty difficult. Well, you'll see what it is. It's a self-explanatory skip. It's not complicated or anything. Whoops, actually I have to jump into the laser now because you can't get back up there, or not quickly enough. I just need to touch that block once is the point. So you can now see there's switches as well, which activate basically when there's a laser pointing at them. Well, or laser receivers, they're not switches. So I need to just make these blocks all the same color so the lasers can pass through. But they're not actually disappearing, they're just cyan, so they blend in with the background. Alright, so this room is pretty easy. The next one is one of the more challenging ones in the run. I'll see if I can get it first try or not. You're not supposed to be able to make it across here, but this is a speedrun, so we don't want to go do all the intended stuff. And that is a double laser skip. You're not supposed to be able to get through the lasers, but there's a big enough gap between them that you can swap colors in midair and just barely squeeze past. Because you're supposed to, I think, put a box there to block them so you can jump across instead. But that's slow. Alright, so this is University. It's the last big area of the game. And it introduces a new puzzle element as well, which is this goo, which basically whenever you push an object into the goo, it turns it that color.
Being back at the university has surfaced many memories here. I remember taking you to lectures. You would crawl to the front of the hall when I wasn't paying attention. Dr. Gray would look down from his lectern, and all his seriousness and authority would wash away. He would pick you up, walk over, and return you to my arms with a smile. Love cannot be measured, Hugh. Like colour, it exists inside of us. I buried it. I buried the love that I had for my own ends. I hope after all this, you will see my mistakes for what they are. Yours lovingly,
So a lot of puzzles here don't actually have skips, so it's just about doing everything as intended. But that's fine, that's what this category is all about. Alright, this is one of my least favorite rooms in the game, just because it's annoying to deal with. Yeah, there's a skip where you can use the momentum of the balloon to jump across the gap, but it's hard, or at least I'm not good at it. And it only saves, I don't know, 2 seconds maybe. Alright, this is an important room as well, because it's you skip everything in it, basically. Not if I jump too late, though. So we did a similar skip earlier on, but this time I have to do it twice in quick succession, which makes it a bit more challenging. Yeah, missed it. So basically, when I switch color, I have a 1/10 of a second to jump. Kinda like that. Alright, made it this time. And we can just jump over that boulder. You're supposed to run. It's kind of a chase sequence there, but we can just skip over by jumping over the boulder. Alright, so a lot of the rooms here you're going to see are quite large, so if there's no skip, each one is going to take a while. Which isn't necessarily bad, but it just means that if you mess up or die, you lose a lot of time. So that's... I mean, in a speedrun you don't want to die anyway, but it's still annoying if you make one small mistake near the end of the run and it costs you 30 plus seconds. Make sure I select the right color. So this color changing block is actually changing the color of the goo there. It's not something that's used a lot. I think there's only 3 puzzles that actually use that, or use something similar to that, but it's interesting nonetheless. Okay, so this room has a cycle to make. We'll see if I can do it or not. Hopefully. Yeah, just barely. I needed to stop this platform a bit earlier just so I can jump up there. but I barely missed it. It's okay. It's not a hugely long cycle, so. Alright, so this is the only room that I'm actually gonna do a wall jump on. Just cause, okay, that's ridiculous. Usually that takes, oh okay, never mind, I did it wrong because I was so quick. Because you're supposed to leave these things the same color. Usually this takes something like 20 tries. I wasn't expecting to get that first try. I don't think I've ever gotten it first try before, to be honest. Yeah, this is more what it usually looks like. Come on. There we go. That's what I was expecting, not the first try. All right. I'm just gonna play safe here. If I fall down to the bottom, then I kind of soft lock the level and have to start over. So in an actual run, I wouldn't pull the block from the side. I'd just push it while jumping, but it's kind of risky. Whoops, I'm supposed to go up here. Because if you fall down, you have to start the level over. Okay. Alright, so this is the last puzzle room in the game, but of course it's very big and very long, so it's going to take a while. And it's easy to mess up as well, just because of precise timing that I need to make. That is, well, that's one of the areas I can die, I guess. I can also just wait an extra cycle. I think I'll do that this time. But you can make it past the skull there normally. But I can also just wait one extra cycle here. Alright, so there's a precise timing I need to make while pushing this box down. Yeah, okay, got it. I just needed that skull to go through the blue box at the bottom. Alright, so that's the last puzzle in the game. But of course there's a long ending sequence here.
Dearest Hugh,
It takes about 2 minutes.
you have grown so much. Your mother, I tried to warn her. I thought that exiling her from the university would protect her, would protect you. She did not understand that some people choose not to see. I never stole the ring from her, Hugh. I tried to destroy it. Before it destroyed her. I now know she had it under control. She knew what she was doing. My intervention shattered the ring, altering your mother's very fabric. My only reprieve is...
So, coming up after this cutscene is going to be a dream sequence, and after that,
we do not
time
see
is coming
things
up,
as
so...
they are, Hugh. Instead, we see them as we are. Your mother. She has been
So,
waiting.
about 1 more minute or so, and then...
I expect she will be thrilled to see how far you've come.
P.S. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can choose how you see it. Now you can see true colour. You must decide if it is for
Alright.
better.
And time.
I hope after all this, it is for the better.
Alright, that was Hugh. I've been Tzann. Yeah, I think coming up next is Mario Kart Double Dash. So with that, I guess I'll hand it off to the next runner.